made it. I'm here. Thank you all for joining me this evening and not going to Sam's thing because mine's more important. Welcome to my recital. The first piece that I would like to speak on is Because I Could Not Stop for Death, which is an art song featuring voice and piano. This piece I composed my freshman year. This was one of the first pieces that I composed here in this program, and it is based on an Emily Dickinson poem of the same name. One of the techniques that I use the most is going to be word painting. For example, because I could not stop when the word stop comes up, the music pauses briefly, or the word quiver, the notes go back and forth in a sort of way of quivering. And there's various motifs throughout. You'll notice them the most in the piano part. The performers for this piece are going to be Sasha Alexandra Guerra and Isaac Bolin. Please join me in welcoming them. The next piece I would like to speak about is simply named View Documentary because I'm not creative. Right. So this originally was Worker of 6 Weeks, which I composed my sophomore year. I composed this piece because I was taking a science gen ed class about bees. I just like bees. So during that, I learned quite a bit about their life cycle, how they work, their importance on the environment, and this has been an important piece to me. And my senior year, last semester, I was applying for grad schools and also was in a film class. So I decided to cut up parts of this piece and put it over a bit of a documentary. Worker of 6 Weeks originally goes through the life cycle of a honeybee who lives approximately 6 weeks. There's a lot of emphasis on the number 6 because of this, along with hexagons and them having 6 legs. One thing that's important to note is that they go through what's called behavioral maturity, meaning that as they age, they get different jobs. In the original piece, I go through how the BB is as a larva and then escaping out of their, chewing out of their cell, and as their different jobs, which are nurse, then guard, then going out and scavenging for nectar and pollen, doing what's called a waggle dance, that's the scientific term, to communicate to other bees where the flowers are, and then eventually passing from old age. So because the way that this documentary is formatted, it didn't do things in the same order I did, but I was able to use bits of the original piece in the recording, cut them up, and put them over. This all stems from my interest in working in media. I hope to compose for video games, but in doing so, you kind of have to dip into film as well. So this was part of my film reel for applying to grad schools. The original recorded audio was done with Milo's Quartet, who recorded here in our studio a couple of years ago. All right, the next piece that I will be talking about will be Altitude. This is a piano quintet with 3 movements and indeterminate interludes. You may be asking, what does that mean? Confusing things. So I composed this around my sophomore year, more over the summer between my sophomore year and junior year. The 3 altitudes represent different states of mind. These movements are labeled plateau, plains, and pitch, because I like alliteration. So, plateau obviously being an elevated state of mind, being happy, plains being more moderate, and pit being feeling like you're in a pit. Because there's these different movements, you're able to switch them around and put them in any order. And because of that, there are different interludes that I have in between each of them, sort of these transitions, and they're using what's called indeterminacy. During all of this, there are various motifs, different kind of ideas that pop up here and there throughout, and are linked to the movement. For our performance, we chose the order of pitch, plains, plateau. I would also like to note that my inspiration from this piece comes from the video game Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Not only in the naming of things such as plains and plateau, but some of the ideas of very sparse music coming in these sort of small gestures. next piece that I will be speaking on is the summoning. This is one of my favorite pieces I've composed. Okay, so this was done my sophomore year, right around the same time I was working on the B piece. The idea came from the stage diagram, which you can kind of see here. It's a little small. So the whole point was that we were all working on a percussion quartet. And to make stage changes much easier, we were all going to use the same layout. And seeing the bass drum being in the center, that gave me an idea of why don't they all share the bass drum? And with how large it is and circular, I was thinking that could be a cauldron. And I like witches, I like Halloween, I like spooky things, so I got with the theme and I ran with it. The narrative of this piece is 4 witches or warlocks are summoning some sort of unworldly, demonic, or far realms-ish type creature. What they do is use various things that represent spiders, bones, a love toy, eyeballs, a fairy, and a live frog that they all at some point put into the cauldron. This piece won the 2022-2023 PSU Call for Scores in the percussion section. So it was performed by a percussion quartet here at Penn State, and the video is from them as well. The next piece I would like to present on is Kaiju Kitty. This is a quadraphonic storytelling experience rather than a song or a piece. This was also done my sophomore year, towards the end of the year. A kaiju, for those uninformed, are essentially giant monsters that tear down things. Think Godzilla, Mothra, things like that. Big and stomp cities. All of the samples were collected myself, or mostly, from my ex's cat. Her name is Kiko, and some of my former friends at the time. And also quadraphonic means that is 3D audio essentially. We'll be hearing sounds coming from 4 of the speakers around the room. So this was kind of inspired by that one thing at Disney World where there's like Stitch's Adventure or something. And Stitch goes, you sit in a big circular room and they have theatrical stuff and Stitch runs around and like burps at you and things. The next piece I'd like to talk about, or have presented, is 5D12, 32D120. This is a chance-based piano solo piece. This is actually sort of the first piece that I composed here at Penn State, my freshman year. The way that we learned about our first project here was to get a 12-sided dice and roll it 5 times to generate 5 pitches. These 5 pitches are on the chromatic scale. Doing this I did this again using a 120-sided dice after writing every single possible permutation of the 5 notes in every order, and rolled that 32 times to get the order of the piece. And I played D&D, and the way that we notate how many times to roll a dice. For example, a 12-sided dice, if you're rolling it 5 times, it's 5d12. And a 120-sided dice, if you rolled 32 times, 32d120. This is what the top left one is, what a 12-sided dice looks like. A 120-sided dice is very uncommon, and that's what that one looks like. And this is how I would go through and write down each. And the thing in the bottom left is a pitch clock, and those are the pitches that I have. moving on to the next piece, Kingdom Dance. This is a Renaissance-inspired clarinet solo. This was done my senior year last semester, and this will be the premiere of it. Wow. So this was done in collaboration with the composition and clarinet studio together, where each of us were assigned a clarinetist to write a piece for, and mine was Adeline Musk. We talked beforehand about what ideas that we wanted it to be about, and she mentioned some styles that she liked was more upbeat and Renaissance inspired, specifically mentioning the dance scene from Tangled. And I was like, wow, I like that one too. So first I attempted to score to it using, because of my interest in media. Then I realized that the scene is a lot shorter than I remembered, so I ended up writing significantly more. Is Woods of Barovia. This is a set-based saxophone quartet. So this was done my junior year towards the very end of it. The next slide will have a lot of diagrams to kind of explain the process of this one. A lot of times when I go into composing a piece, I have sort of an idea and some rough sketches, and it just kind of comes together. This one I had a lot of processes for. And speaking of processes. This is how I was processing the loss of a lot of friendships. I went through a breakup during my junior year, and this included losing all of the friends that were friends with my ex at the time. I also use a lot of references to a reference to Bartok's Hungarian dances, number 3, which would be there at the end. I also use Morse code, which I will explain in a couple of slides. And the audio itself is recorded from New Thread Quartet last week, which means that I had to edit this very quickly. So this is one of the diagrams I was speaking about. So essentially I wanted to use a triangle in the middle of the pitch clock, which you saw a few pieces ago with 5D12, 32, D120. I'm using a triangle, and then I thought, well, what if I do that, but then I just shifted over one, and then you can see that with the black and the green. From there, I thought, well, why don't I combine the 2 triangles into this sort of shape? It ends up being, if you kind of squint at it, and you I didn't draw all the lines in connecting everything, but if you connect all the points together, it creates this sort of pyramid within the base pitch clock. So I go through the notes focusing on A flat in this sort of triangular pattern, and then it switches over into A natural using the same pitches. You can see below what it looks like in the tenor saxophone part. I do not let the tenor saxophonist breathe, because this goes on for like a solid minute and a half. Unfortunately, in the recording, the saxophonist was playing in, I believe it, E flat when they were supposed to be playing E natural, or perhaps the other way around, that's the transpose score. Regardless, I went through meticulously editing every single E into the correct one. And this is what I mean by my Morse code pattern. What I used was basic Morse code and converted each letter into a note letter, a pitch. And you can see that top one, how that adds up. So I go up the scale, then back down using the sharps, and then the entire thing up an octave, and then for Y and Z, just going down an octave. So I use the names of the players. Oh, I forgot to explain those. Okay, so this, the reason why the loss of this friendship affected me so greatly was because we were in a 2-year-long D&D campaign called Curse of Strahd, which is infamous. Essentially, the plot of it is you are these weak people thrown into this foreign land of fog and mist and hopelessness, fighting against the all-powerful vampire lord Strahd. And the name of this land is called Barovia, which is influenced by Romania. Hence the Hungarian dances reference. So I used the names of the players in this campaign and turned their names into Morse code. You can see how I owe myself for my own name and how that looks, and then how I put it into notation of how it would look notated.